again for another weekly installment. You guys ask any questions that you want, throw them down below. We're gonna do a live Q&A rapid fire round. But until then, I am going to just give you a little preamble of what I think's been going on. One, I think that the market is two things. This real estate market. I'll start with the real estate market first. Oh, hang on, phone's frozen. There. I'll start with this thing. I think that first and foremost, the real estate market right now is in a very, very interesting spot. Specifically, I think that the challenges that we're having right now are putting us in a place where I think we might be near the first bottom. I think it's very, very possible that this December is the first and potentially the lowest of the bottoms before a second bottom. I think it's gonna be a double bottom. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that this spring, we're going to see a bit of a rip up. We're seeing that a lot of folks that I know are calling me and they're like, hey, I invested with X and Y person. They're going belly up. Or our contractors are like, hey, have you heard that X and Y hasn't paid their bills? Have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? There's a lot of gossip going around. So I got to hear through the rumor mill what's been going on. And specifically what's been going on is a lot of investors here in Ontario are going bust. A lot of them have mortgages they're default on, and right about now, the lenders are starting to take the properties away. The folks are starting to run out of steam. So that's good because they're being removed from, a lot of the repeat investor buyers are being removed from the demand pool. So demand is shrinking right now. And then there's a whole bunch of people who want to invest, but just can't because you make $100,000 a year, you can't qualify for a mortgage. You need to make $200,000, $400,000 a year to qualify for a mortgage in Ontario. The stress testing rules being what they are, they're still pretending that rates are 2%. So they add an additional couple of percentage points of stress test to the mortgage qualifications right now. Now, we're seeing the effects of the tightening of the raised rates where such that things don't really make a lot of sense. And for the first time, things are coming back into balance. This is where I think we're getting to the nearest bottom because I'm seeing rents over this period of say 18 months have risen in some cases 20 to 30% in certain pockets in Ontario. So rents are going like this right now, straight up. It looks like this, but pretty much straight up trend while house prices have fallen 30%. So what we've seen is that the net operating income is actually going to grow as prices fall and rents rise. We're getting to that sweet spot. I don't know if we're there yet. I think my forecast has been for the last 2 years, since inflation became transitory. If you go back and watch my videos, I said December is going to be the bottom. December 2023, I said, and then December 2024 is the final bottom. But I think we have a bounce into the spring where rates fall. Here in Ontario and Canada, rates have fallen almost 1%. We're getting back to 5% mortgages here, and that's pretty crazy. CMHC is offering, in some cases, I'm hearing about some, high fours promotions going on right now at Mortgage Town, mortgage rules. Being what they are, that's pretty juicy. So we may see if this trend continues and they start to cut, because again, economic GDP is negative right now in Canada and in Ontario. It's pretty bad. So I think people are capitulating. I think there's pain. And more than likely, we'll see a relief rally in the spring. And so we'll probably see a 10 or 20% rip like we saw this spring. If you look at the data trends here in my area, London, Ontario, we actually saw prices fall to the point of, I guess, last December was the bottom. We bounced in the spring up 15% in Ontario, and now we've dropped another 15, 20%. In my market, it's been extremely volatile, but a slow drop. But if you zoom out 2-3 years, it looks like, the chart looks crazy. Nothing moves aggressively fast in real estate. And so, you see a couple of percentage points a month in either direction. But still, if you zoom out over a 2-year period, we had a huge peak in 2022 and then a 35% drop in the value of properties. So very substantial. The largest drop that I've seen outside of COVID in general. There hasn't been one to this extent. So very interesting. I think that, again, there's a number of indicators I think that are pointing to a spring pop. There is a lot of investor demand sitting on the sidelines right now that want to get into the market, that want to jump in, but just can't. So if rates fall a little bit further, and I think that they will, I think second quarter of 2024, we're going to see rates start to fall all the way until the end of 2025, early 2026, before we see rates materially come back. Now, it's possible they get more aggressive with the rate decreases, the rate cuts into next year, towards the end of next year. If they do that, we could possibly see a resurgence in inflation. Because remember, core inflation is still like 4% plus, and that's the way that they're measuring it. Rents they're sticky. They're not going to come down aggressively. in the same way that they went up. And so I think there's a challenge there with, on one hand, I think the majority of people right now want to see disinflation. They want to see the opposite of inflation. They want to see prices come back down to where they were 2 years ago. We've had food prices in some categories up 20, 30, 40%. We've seen housing, or at least rent-wise, go 20, 30% for the average person who rents. And that's material. And even if inflation drops to 0%, we're still fucked because no one can afford to pay these increased prices unless wages catch up. And if wages catch up, then we're going to have a price-wage spiral, which leads to more inflation, right? So there's a challenge, I think. There's a challenge out there. And, it really is one of those things where, seasonally speaking, December is always the low. Like, if you go in the biggest bull market, there's still a 10% drop seasonally here in Ontario between the peak of spring and the bottom in December. Now, in Florida, it's a little bit different. They get a little bit of a rush in January, February, even like December a little bit, but January, February, March is like their high time. All the snowbirds come down, they just dump money into the market. So it's interesting because we don't get our high time until, I would say, if you're lucky, you get March, April, May, sometimes June, you get a big push. And I may have to hold a few of my properties that I have that are all finished now. I'm probably going to hold a few of them until the spring for that reason. If an offer comes in, bonus. If it doesn't, I can hold that cash flow. As an example, I have a triplex here in London as an example. It's got a guest house in the back and it's got a main house. And we tore the roof off it and put a second story on it and did a big renovation. That was pretty much all we did to it, but we spent a lot of money doing that and fighting with the city to get engineers. And we went through COVID, everything was shut down for like 9 months. The city didn't even respond. It was crazy, crazy times. But anyway, that's a rental property that I have rented out and I'm bringing in I don't know, $63,000 a year in rent, let's say. It's $5,000 something a month in rent, right, as an example. Now that property, I actually own it free and clear. I don't have any mortgage on it at all. So I'm very cash flow positive. But I've trapped the cash in that property and I have the property for sale and there's just no bites at all. Just very few showings, no offers, not a lot of demand where the property would easily appraise at the price I'm trying to sell it for. So it's what I'm seeing move in the market right now is, and I may have to keep that property until the spring. I probably will until a buyer bites, right? Unless someone bites and wants it. But it's interesting. I'm noticing, just anecdotally, I also have the data though. I'm a realtor. I'm looking at the price chart. It looks like this. And supply chart looks like this. We had half a month of available inventory on the market. So we had 15 days of available housing. And we now have 4.5 months. So inventory levels are up 900%. That's the data in the London, St. Thomas area real estate. So when inventory spikes 900% and continues to rise every month, what that's telling me is more houses are being listed that are being sold. So there just isn't a lot of really good demand for that, unfortunately. So yeah, what else can I tell you guys? Oh, there's a whole bunch of questions here. Let me jump to the questions for a sec here and then I'll go back to my rant. David says, hello again from Alberta. Hey, how you doing? Mason says, hey, Mike, hope things are going well. Thanks, Mason. Music says, hey, Mike, enjoying these live streams. Hope all is well on your end with your family. Thanks so much, guys. I'm taking on some really big projects and then I'm looking to take a little bit of a break and just kind of consolidate what I have and enjoy life a little bit more. My wife really wants to travel, really wants to do some cool stuff. And, I want to spend some time with my kids too. So I'm really excited for this next chapter because I'm going to try to slow the growth pattern a little bit, catch up, build good systems, hire the right people, and focus more on all aspects of my life. And through that, I'll be able to grow, I think in the end, faster because I won't be burning out. So I'm really excited for this next chapter. And I just want to say for those people who are struggling right now, because I know a lot of real estate investors, I'm getting calls from people of investors with 20, 30 properties, 5 properties that are just underwater here in Ontario. Their entire portfolio is worth nothing, equity-wise, and they're struggling. And hang in there, guys. Sometimes it makes sense to cut the fat. And I know ego is tied up with a lot of these investors. Some of them are like, I can't sell the property. What do I do? I'm cash flow negative. And it's if you're a flipper, cut the burn. It's only going to get worse. I think if you hold till spring, let's say it goes up 10%. If you get some of these guys are calling me, they have private mortgages at 1.5%, asking me to help them refinance their portfolios. And it's there's no equity here. How do I help? You have nothing here. If you sell it today, you have nothing. You're cash flow negative. It's a single family home that you flipped and you can't even get out. You have nothing. Your equity is negative. The lender owns the property, not you. One option is to try to Airbnb them. I've explained strategies like that, but hang on there, guys. through these times. Sometimes, I know it hurts the ego, sometimes it's better to break and to walk away. But sometimes there's ways you can try harder. A lot of these investors I was talking to were like, I'm like, what are you doing right now? They're like, oh, I got my kids, gymnastics, and like, oh, I'm gone next week on a trip to Costa Rica. I'm gone, forget the Costa Rica, I was just making a big example. I don't want to give any specifics of anyone I was talking to, but people are traveling and it's like, what are you doing living high on the hog? Cut all your expenses immediately. You're not traveling fucking anywhere. You owe lenders money. No. You get a second job, you work your ass off every night, you post them for rent on Airbnb, you optimize the listings, you deal with the grind, and you make the properties work. This is how you get out of it. These guys are like, oh, I'm just so burnt out, like I can't do. Fuck being burnt out. Like, this is not the time to give up, guys. We are near the bottom. Maybe not the last bottom, but we're at least near a bottom right now. And sometimes cutting now is better than cutting later, but sometimes you can grind through it too. So anyway, that's my advice is keep pushing through. Hard work makes all the difference. And a lot of these people aren't putting in the work, and the ones who aren't putting in the work right now are suffering. I'm thankful that, that I keep good liquidity cash reserves, because I am also a flipper. Imagine if of the 15 projects I've done in the last year, I would say 6 of them I lost money on, here in Ontario specifically. The US has been different. Florida's been not so bad. Like, we had a little bit of a pullback, but like Ontario went like this. If you bought something in 2022, which I did buy a few things, and even in 2023, the stuff I bought in the spring of this year, like I bought in like May 2023 even, we've seen from May 2023 to now like a 10 or 15% retracement. We're back to the bottom. We had a bit of a rally off the bottom into the spring, and we've lost that. And when that happens, I mean, sometimes with costs being like, flipping costs are really high right now. I used to be able to borrow at 5, 6, 7%. Now you get to borrow at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15% when your costs are that high. And material costs are up to 30, 40%. So where maybe you estimated a rental would be X, and it comes back Y, you're like, geez, it's way higher than I thought it was going to be. Margins are tight. So I can even understand, like, it's been shitty, like I've still made money, thankfully, in the flipping business, but like a lot less. So I can imagine as someone who's new to this or didn't have the experience or isn't putting in the work, how they're getting wiped out right now. So hang in there, guys. This is when the tide goes out, and those who are swimming naked, you see it, right? And there's some people swimming naked. Thankfully, I got a Speedo on. I'm all good. Just joshing with you guys. But no, I mean, even I feel it a little bit too. When real estate falls like this, if my equity in real estate, I probably lost $1 million in equity in real estate. My stock portfolio has been shit this year because, again, I shorted the NASDAQ, not realizing there's an AI bubble. It will eventually correct, but, Randy says, hey, Mike, maybe a little question, but what methods would you use to evaluate returns for properties you plan to hold long term? So one way to evaluate whether a property should be sold, or again, there's also market conditions that play into this, like the spring is the ideal time to sell here in Ontario. It's not ideal to sell now, unfortunately, but it's like, do you want to hold through this? I mean, it's an option. You could hold through this, right? But, okay, so how do you evaluate? One way that I like to evaluate is, does the property produce positive cash flow net of its carrying cost? And then the other metric that I use is current equity in the property. What is the opportunity cost of said equity? And I combine those two into basically an equation in my head that allows me to, and you can do it on Excel too, you don't have to do it back your napkin or in your head, but effectively you have to find out what kind of equity do you have in the property, what's the value of that equity. And then the second thing you have to look at is, I guess another metric too is like the desirability or long-term appreciation for that area could play in a little bit to your decision as well. So if you knew that like the area is being gentrified in the next 2 years, and there was some reason you wanted to hold that property, and it might be $200 a month cash flow negative in a large metropolitan area, it could make sense to hold that property and just put $200 your own money to carry it every month for the next 2 years, because you're gonna get a huge lift on it. So there could be a play where you keep it, but I like to look for, a price per door. Some of these funds here in Ontario are buying stuff at $200,000 and $300,000 a door. Like, what? I would never pay more than $100,000 a door. Never. I don't think I've ever bought a property for more than $100,000 a door if it's more than 6 units. And like, I'm seeing people buy sixplexes for like 300 grand a door in London, more than 300 grand a door. And they're like major funds you've probably heard of. And it's like, what are you doing? That is, you can never cash flow. And that's so overpriced. Like, who's running a lot of these REITs? They're just fucking retarded. I mean, it's horribly low cap rates and just terrible cash flow to price per door. But opportunities are out there if you look right now. There's tons of opportunity. David says, do you think non-recourse mortgages in Alberta, when you put 20% down, is an advantage? I guess if you don't want to get sued, the difference between recourse and non-recourse in Ontario, if you try to walk away from your mortgage, mortgages are recourse. So you're your ass sued. They're gonna come and take the suits out of your closet, your car, out of your driveway. They'll take every fucking thing you have if you try to walk away. That's a good thing in Ontario. In Alberta, in the US, mortgages are not that way. That's why in 2008 it was so bad, is because people just walked away. Here, they gave the keys to the bank, non-recourse mortgage, all good. That can happen in Alberta. You can walk away, all good, take the house, I'm done. Try to do that in Ontario, banks are gonna come, they're gonna come into your house, they're gonna take all your jewelry, they're gonna empty your bank accounts, they're gonna take your car, and take your shit out of your closet, because it's recourse. They have recourse to come after you and take everything that you have, all of your personal possessions. They can bankrupt your ass. But non-recourse, they can't do that. So in Ontario right now, where we've seen these major pullbacks in some of these tertiary markets, like the Muskokas are down 50% from their peak. 50%. If you had a cottage worth $3 million, it's worth $1.5 million. You had $1 million cottage worth 500 grand. That's the reality of some pockets in Ontario right now. And imagine you put 30% down or 25% down on a property. You're currently in negative 25% equity. Not only you have nothing, but to get rid of that property, you have to give the bank 25% down again just to get out with nothing. That's the reality. And if you don't, they'll come take your house as well as your cottage to make restitution for the difference. Or they'll take a car to your driveway, or they'll take your jewelry, or they'll freeze your bank accounts. That's the reality that a lot of investors are facing right now. And because they didn't buy smart and they made mistakes. And hopefully, like the ideal scenario here is, and I'll put this out there, one of the things I love about real estate over the stock market is if you make a mistake in real estate and you fuck up and you buy a property that goes down in value and you bought smart and you followed my principles of like buying for cash flow, you don't care. Rent, if you have this triplex that doesn't make sense, you hold the property forever. They can't call it on you. All debt, mortgage debt is non-callable. They don't want the property back. So as long as you can make the payments every month, they leave you alone. It doesn't matter that you're negative equity. And I had someone go out with me on a long chat, and we went back and forth. And like the solution for one of these guys was actually just to keep their portfolio. They had no equity at all, like 9 properties or whatever, but they had no equity at all. All their properties were like, if they were to sell them now, pay a realtor 4 or 5%, pay all the taxes to sell, the legal fees, all that, they would end up with like hugely negative bill. They had hundreds of thousands of dollars to walk away. So they can't walk away. There is no out for them. And so we're looking at the portfolio and it's like, there's no way out. Some people have a way out, but this person had no way out other than negotiating with lenders. So I was like, look, go back to your lenders and explain the situation. Say, look, if we sell all this, the lawyers get paid before the first mortgage people do. That's just how it works. And the realtors often get paid before the first mortgage as well. I had a first mortgage default and the realtors and the lawyer got paid before I did. And I was first secured. So just letting you know, if you're first secured mortgage, actually the lawyer and the realtors come first. But then the first mortgage person gets paid. And you go to them and say, look, you got a $400,000 mortgage. This property's worth $350,000. I can sell it right now for $350,000. There's going to be a shortfall. Do you want to spend years in court fighting over this? Or do you want to renegotiate the terms? And I'll cash flow this property. Maybe I'll pay you a bit more. So I went with them and was like, let's restructure a payment system where you pay them more money a month, but they reduce the interest rate. And so you're building down principal and you're paying back some principal. They're winning because they're not taking a loss in their investment. And you've got a plan now where they're going to cash flow this property. And the lender's happy if they see that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So I say, go to them and say, look, I'm going to, the property's vacant right now, but I'm going to stabilize it. I'm going to put in tenants. I'm going to do this and that, run Airbnb. Here's my plan. Bring a plan to the lender and say, look, I want to put more money in your pocket, but you have to work on the interest costs a little bit for me, or work on something in some way where we can make this work. And they were able to do that. And so holding made a lot of sense because in this case, they were able to reposition their portfolio to a furnished rental. And furnished rentals bring in 25% more rent, and then they're going to rent each one by the bedroom as well. So by doing that, they're able to increase their cash flow significantly from being, I think in one case, it was like a 5-bedroom house, and they were able to put a 6-bedroom in the dining room, just put some doors on it. There was a basement den, they could cut in a window, and like, boom, now they had like extra couple bedrooms, $700 a bedroom. All of a sudden, their cash flow went up like 30%. They're actually cash flow positive. And it's like, well, we can tweak this portfolio to be cash flow positive. Now, all of a sudden, it seems like things are really, really bad, but now he's cash flow positive. He or she, I'm not going to pretend I didn't say he. They're cash flow positive, and the person's able to be in a situation where now, they're bringing in enough money to pay their lender. Their lender's happy. No one's foreclosing on them. In the next 5 years, this portfolio, now that it has more cash flow, by the way, I mean, I could make the argument that maybe it's actually almost positive equity now. Like maybe all the net loss that was there has been fixed by like going hard. This person's going 16 hours a day, every day. All they're doing is thinking about how to optimize those portfolios. They're getting in there themselves, getting their hands dirty, putting up doors and drywall, and like they're working their asses off to get the property together and to put cash flow into it. And they're working on rent out the bedrooms. Like that's a lot of work. That's more than a full-time job, but they're saving their entire net worth. Now they have, say, like 9 properties or whatever it is. And going into the next bull run, when things appreciate at 20%, they're going to have a huge equity position. And they're going to be in a great position versus walking away from their portfolio. So sometimes doubling down, working your ass off, that's the solution, right? Sometimes. Not for everyone. Some people can walk away and it can make sense. But I think right now, hanging in there makes a lot of sense. So, I would say maybe that's the advice for a lot of people here is like, you need to work your asses off. Don't be lazy and find a way to cash flow these properties. And it's like a lot of people, they sit there with vacant properties. This isn't the time for that. They're sitting there with under-rented properties. This isn't the time for that. They're putting off a renovation. This isn't the time for that. This is the time to find a way to make it work cheaply. Don't spend a whole bunch of money renovating your property. Don't over-renovate right now. Over-renovating is a big mistake. You want to be really lean, cut your costs, under-renovate in these markets. Mason says, you ever bought a house with knob and tube wiring? Who do you use for insurance? Yeah, I bought a few houses. There's tons of brokers out there you can use that will shop all the different insurance companies. It won't be cheap. You're going to pay. And in many cases, they'll put like, I think on one of the ones I did, it was 120 days or 150 days after I bought it to resolve it and show a receipt from the electrician. So oftentimes they'll make you fix it, but yeah. Grinder says, hello, Michael Paul as well. Would you lock in 3-year right now or wait until rates soften a bit? It depends on the terms you're getting. I'll say that. There are some situations where I've talked to people who have locked in, some really great variable rates for like 5.9% variable or something, like a huge discount off prime. And I say, okay, in some situations, variable makes more sense, especially because I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see a lot of rate decreases. I locked in my cottage at 5.1% this year, sorry. I locked in my other property at 5.2%, I think it was, for a 3-year fixed. I have an early renew option at 2 years because I believe rates will have fallen by then. The other one, I have a year and a half left on the fixed mortgage, and the rest of my properties are my HELOC's variable. So I have a mix of different debt that's fixed and non. But I fixed in, what was it? The spring of this year. And I didn't get that great of a rate because, again, the challenge I had was like my stated income is for my corporation. So I'm an entrepreneur trying to qualify. It's different than T4 income. And I have a lot of debt to service, right? Like I just have a lot of properties. Banks don't like that in general. So it depends on your situation. But I can see a good argument for doing a 2-year fixed right now. There's a good chance that rates stay above 4.5% for another year. So if you could lock in at a lower rate than the variable and you're up 1% net for another year, and then maybe you lose for 6 months of it, most mortgages in Ontario here, you can renew 6 months early, no penalty. So when it's a 2-year fix, it's really 1.5 years fixed, and you can just renew. So I would go 2-year fixed because that's 1.5 years fixed with the option to extend 6 months for free, which is kind of cool in Ontario. So I think 3 years is a bit excessive. If you're really conservative and the property does work in cash flow, I can see a good argument for locking in rates right now. I could also see an argument for taking a little risk and saying, hey, like rates are probably going to fall. How much higher can things be for how much longer? It's a tough call. If a cash flow, for me, like my cottage and some of the other properties I locked in, it was like the cash flow, the numbers worked. I didn't want the risk. And lucky I did because rates have gone, at one point they went into the 6s, well into the 6s, and almost into the 7s for some of the fixed stuff I was seeing 3-year fixed. So I was kind of glad I locked in this past spring, or was it this? Yeah, it was like May. So I don't know. That's what I did. I did both. I hedged my bets. So I have some variable, some fixed. Boom, boom, boom. David says, very disappointed with the Liberals removing only the stress test when an insured mortgage reviews and you switch banks. Would they penalize those who put 20% down? Why would they penalize those who put 20% down? The reason for that is that they're really only so the Liberal base, sorry, I just knocked my phone holder all over. You guys are like a bobblehead. One of the things that the reason that the Liberals do what they do for the most part is they're placating to their base, and their base is poor bums. I don't want to say that, but like I don't want to try to get political on this channel, but most Liberals are tenants. Most left-leaning folks are poor. Like you can literally draw a socioeconomic ladder between each party. And the poorest and the blue collar tend to be NDP or Liberal, and the wealthier and the mostly entrepreneur tend to lean conservative. Not always, but that tends to be how it works out. So a lot of the Liberal followers are like your average everyday blue collar, folks. They have one house, or they're looking to buy their first house, or they're a baby boomer, and so they're voting for what their kids buying their first property. That's why they placate to their base who's buying their first property. They're not trying to appease the investor. They don't give a shit about the investor. In fact, Trudeau's been quoted, and the housing minister, both quoted, and the finance minister, Freeland or whatever, quoted now saying, our goal is to drive housing prices down. Well, guess fucking what? You've been doing a great job at that. Racking up the debt, so they have to bring, as they spend, right? If fiscal spending is really high, then what do they have to do to compensate for that? Because that creates inflation, is they have to raise rates. So they've effectively done exactly what they wanted to do. But they do want the first-time buyer. They want it to look like the first-time buyer can qualify. So that's what they did. What they did was to say, hey, look, this 25-year-old teacher can still buy a house in Sarnia, Ontario. It's like, anyway, why did they do it? Because they want to make sure that there's not a lot of risk. Insured mortgages have less risk because CMHC is standing in to give the insurance. So, yeah. Hey, Mike, if someone wants to something with you, especially in, you lifted a word, Andrew. If someone wants to something with you, especially in your journey of creating the triangle or focus on acquisitions, how do you plan to work with them? Oh, work with them. I think you mean like invest. Okay, so left the word invest. I get it now. I filled in the blanks. So how do you invest with me? It's difficult because I don't really want to take on small-time investors. I would take on bigger investors. If someone had like $1 million or $2 million in capital, I'd work with them. But I don't really want to work with someone with like 100 grand or 50 grand or like some small amount. It just doesn't make sense for me. How do you invest? Follow along on my projects. Let me know you want to invest with me. Send me an email at rosehartcapital@gmail.com. If you have significant reserves, we can have a chat. I only work with accredited investors, which means folks who have, I think the requirement to be accredited is like 250,000 in income, or I think $1 million plus in net assets. So that's the minimum that I have to work with people. I don't work with unaccredited investors. I just don't. I don't have a lot of investors that I work with, period. But there are a few people that I work with that I really like, and I continue to work with those people. So I do have this 168 unit project in Florida that we're working on. It's 40-something thousand a door. Fantastic value add project. Great for an extended stay hotel. Beautiful, beautiful property. Really, really great pricing that I do want to bring partners on at some point. I may end up closing it myself and bringing partners on after the fact, after I've stabilized it. We haven't decided how we're gonna, I have one partner who's on board already, and me and him may just close on it ourselves. We haven't decided yet, but if you're interested in a project like that and you have significant reserves, I've had a lot of people reach out and say, oh, I have 100 grand to throw in. And I'm like, I don't want 10 partners. Like I have no interest in taking small amounts of money, so I'm just not even gonna entertain that. But if you had $1 million or $2 million and you wanted to put it to work where you can pretty much double it over a 2-year period, 3-year period, most of the projects I'm looking at right now are looking at a 200% ROI. So it's aggressive, but there's definitely some really great ROI over a 5-year period here. And if you're on for the long term and you want to grow it and do it in a passive way, I'm the guy for that. Yeah, it's very chill. Definitely in Florida. In Ontario here, I don't have any projects that I need capital for. I'm fully funded. But message me, if you have something, and I'll put you on a wait list, we can, next time I find a really good deal, I'll let you know. Well, Jeff says, will renegotiating terms with a lender affect your credit score or other things? No. No, I would say that, oh well, a bunch of messages got deleted. Weird. It says message timed out. I didn't even know messages timed out. Jeff says, okay, so talking about renegotiating your lender. No. So even a renewal actually doesn't affect your credit score at all. When a lender, when your term comes due, say it's a 5-year fixed rate mortgage or a 3-year fixed rate mortgage, when it comes due 6 months before, the bank will call you and say, hey, we're looking to renew. Here are the options. They'll be doing that especially now. I can guarantee you they're going to call you every week. They're like, hey, you got to renew soon in 4 months. Like, here are the options. And they'll send you an offer in the mail. They may right now, because they want to keep the money redeployed at these high rates, they're going to try to get people to renew right now. So I'm sure they got a department that's working hard to renew the 3% mortgage into 5 or 6. But no, the whole renewal process doesn't require any requalifying. So if you qualify for that mortgage with a job, and now it's 3 years later and your fixed rate mortgage is up, they'll offer you another term, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year fixed rate mortgage. You get to choose the rate, the term, without having to requalify, as long as the mortgage balance is staying the same. There's no requalification. You could be a bum with no job and you auto renew. So that's the nice thing about mortgages in Canada, is there is no review process. it's like literally they just renew you and you just negotiate on terms and there's no downside. Unless you switch lenders, then you have to requalify. But if you're staying with the same lender, you can negotiate a bit and say, hey, like they'll offer, always you negotiate. They'll offer you like, here's 6. And you can be like, no, I'm gonna go bring my business somewhere else. I want 5.5. And you can negotiate and they'll give you like 5.6. So always negotiate the rate. They'll always do better. Sharpen your pencil. Most people it's so crazy to me that people just accept what's given. Like so many people get a renewal letter on their rental property, their house, and it's like Scotia offered you, Scotiabank says you get a renewal at 5.5%. And they just take it. Like they don't call the bank to fight it. They don't try to negotiate it down. It's like, that's tens of thousands of dollars. It's crazy how people just don't think to negotiate anything in life. To me, that's just wild because I like to negotiate everything in life. Evan says, hey, Mike, for your Ontario projects, are you going CMHC or at once stabilized? We wait till rates drop to do this? Yes. So our 23-unit project, we're going to be hopefully bringing into the CMHC program through the energy efficiency point system to be 5% down. If that happens, then I'll be cashed out $2 million on the project. I'll have negative $2 million. They will pay me $2 million for that project if everything goes as planned. And hopefully rates fall to the point where I can get a CMHC mortgage for like 3%. By the way, guys, I think I've said this before on the channel, but like people ask, why do you like multifamily now, Mike, as opposed to the small deals? And the reason is that here in Ontario, CMHC subsidizes the interest rate cost and the loan to value on large multifamily projects that qualify. So you can buy 5% down. You can buy a $10 million building for $500,000 down in Ontario, as long as it's providing housing in Ontario and it meets certain requirements. You don't even have to do certain rent requirements. You can just be like an energy efficient building, buy an old building and renovate it, make it energy efficient, doing the windows and faucets and stuff. And the government of Canada will be like, okay, charge whatever rent you want. Like we don't care about that. As long as it meets the cash flow requirements, we're not gonna rent cap you. We're not gonna rent restrict you. But if you're providing additional housing, we're gonna allow you to buy 5% down and we'll give you a rate of prime minus 2%. They don't have that in the States. There's nowhere where they lend you prime minus 2.5%. That's Canada. I know people have 1.1% mortgages on 50-year amortizations in Ontario. So the Ontario real estate and multifamily space is propped up on free government money. They pretty much subsidize the entire multifamily space, which is why a lot of our multifamily trades at $200,000 and $300,000 a unit, and we have 4-cap buildings in Toronto because people are borrowing at 1.1, 1.3% interest. You can borrow at 1.1% fixed for 5 years, subsidized by the government at 5% down. I mean, it's just dirty. The rates actually start to make sense if you can get a positive spread. Like when rates fall again and you have cap rates at 5, cap rates at 5 actually makes sense if the government's subsidizing and lending you at 2%, at 5% down on large multifamily buildings. Whereas you're buying like a hacked up 5-plex, you have to put 25% down and get a shit rate from the bank at like 7% right now. Whereas CMHC is probably 5 right now. And when rates fall, it's probably 3 or 2 or 1% interest. And at 1% interest on a $10 million building, you're basically getting free money from the government. I know lots of people who got 1% mortgages for the next 5 years fixed. So it's like for the next 5 years, inflation was 10% and the government was subsidizing them at 1% rate. They're basically getting free money to a $10 million building. And they put 500 grand down, it's a rounding error. The building's probably fallen to the point where that 500,000 they have negative equity in the building. So it's like the whole large multifamily space in Ontario is owned by the government because a lot of these buildings are 85, 90% loan to value and refinanced when rates were low at crazy valuations. So the CMHC actually owns all these buildings. That most of the owners of these $10 million buildings, $20 million buildings that are part of the CMHC programs, I bet you a lot of them don't have any equity at all. None. So there's only a building that's cash flowing because of a government subsidy effectively. That's what makes multifamily work in Canada in a way that it doesn't in Florida. But the nice thing about Florida is that the rates are the cap rates and the price per units are so low there that the math really makes sense. Where it doesn't make sense in Ontario is buildings that don't qualify for CMHC. There's a lot of them. Anything that's not purpose built, it's all hacked up. A lot of things that don't qualify. And so, yeah, little tidbit of knowledge there for you guys. Any thoughts on the new budget that came out Tuesday? To be honest with you, I didn't even read it. I haven't had time. I've been so busy. So I can't comment. I'm sure that it's full of fallacious, dirty spending all over the place for shit that doesn't matter. Well, I did see a reel on Instagram about the new change to allow the green bonds to support nuclear energy here in Canada. That's a great thing because we're the largest supplier, I think, of uranium in the world. And so it's great to see that we're actually going to start producing nuclear energy again. They didn't consider nuclear energy green. The Canadian government didn't consider it green. It's funny because we make the most of it. Uranium, right? I think it is. And we we don't have a big support of nuclear. And there's going to be a big push for nuclear, which is great. Love to see them push for a lot of industry in Canada, and that would really help if the government was pro developing what we have, which is we are a naturally resource, one of the largest countries in the world. Bum, 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 bum. Ooh, I just clicked the wrong button. All right. Tristan says, is that multifamily CMHC interest rate subsidy only on Ontario or in BC too? Good question. I think it's Canada-wide. I'm pretty sure CMHC operates in every market, but it's a good question. I've never done a large multifamily deal in like Nova Scotia. Maybe someone in the comments knows, can just do a quick Google search. Does CMHC finance properties in other areas too? I'm pretty sure they definitely finance stuff in Alberta because I've seen a deal that had CMHC attached to it, I'm pretty sure. I would think it's Canada-wide, in which case, like, interesting, right? In Alberta, for sure. Like, you get buildings in Alberta that are fully vacant right now. You can walk in, you can pick your own tenants, and the landlord-tenant rules there are a lot better than in Ontario. Who is this? Whoa. Hey, how you doing, Paul? Energy costs need to go down. You know, it's interesting. If you look at oil prices right now, we've seen an amazing amount of fall from the price of oil in the last 4 weeks. We've seen interest rates fall. We've seen oil fall. It's actually a good thing for inflation right now. We're seeing maybe peace in the Middle East. Obviously, the Hamas-Israel ceasefire that's going on right now and the prisoner releases. That's been really good for the markets. Been horrible for oil prices as they continue to fall, which should be a good driver for inflation. So, right on. Alcoholic Ken got muted. All right, that's all I got. All the questions are answered. Sweet. Oh, one more question I missed. Sorry. Any comments on Binance being charged? Binance just left Canada too. Interesting. I don't have a Binance account anymore. If I do, it's like nothing on it. But it's interesting because CZ was battling with Sam Bankman-Fried, right? And there was looking to be an acquisition, and then he burned him and basically outed Sam Bankman. That's when he got caught out with all those altcoins and shit, and then found out he was investing effectively like his customers' money, and then the whole thing went to shit. It would have been fine if no one ever found out because he would have brought the money back over, but because Binance actually fucked him, it's funny, probably SBF fucked Binance back, so I'm sure that they, they're the two largest in the crypto space. So it's interesting. Well, my comment is this. I don't really care either way. It doesn't really matter that much, but the interesting thing about this is the crypto industry in general is going through a maturing phase, and it is becoming mainstream accepted. It's going to be traded publicly on, U.S. exchanges now soon. I think that a Bitcoin and ETH ETF soon will be approved. And what it is, a lot of large retirement accounts that couldn't touch Bitcoin, that couldn't touch crypto, will now be able to hold crypto. Institutional investors will be allowed to expose their portfolios. I think most people like gold or silver or any other asset class. It's just a digital gold. One of the nice things about Bitcoin as an example is, like, let's say I wanted to go to like Costa Rica and I wanted to move $1 million, and like we're in COVID and things are shut down. It's like, how do I get my money there? Well, in a free way. If I bring $50,000, even $50,000 in gold bars in a backpack in the airport, they'll seize it. They'll say, oh, we think you stole that, we're gonna take that. They're just gonna seize it from me. And it could be my own gold that I have a good reason why I have it. I went and bought it, and here's my receipt. It's like, nope, they're gonna seize it from me because it could be for illegal activities. You bring cash in a backpack across the country. Nope, can't do it. You take a USB drive, put it in your backpack with your laptop, bring it across, can't do anything. 10 billion in Bitcoin, you can move it wherever you want. I like that. The government can't fucking control you. Bitcoin scares the shit out of them. They're already controlling the off and on ramps. Anyone who has an off ramp or an on ramp to get into crypto from fiat currency into crypto and out is being shut down. They're basically going after anyone. So it's a dangerous time to be in that space. So I feel for Binance, and they pulled out because they can't comply. They made it too hard to comply. But at the same time, like, I'm a freedom lover, and I think everyone should have the right to freedom at the end of the day, right? And you don't have freedom with cash in the same way anymore. It's hard to transport. If I want to go to Costa Rica or Florida or Bahamas or whatever, I have to go through the proper channels. And now they've got new regulation where they're flagging anyone who, even like an honest person moving $10,000 of their own money, you get flagged. You move less than $10,000, they get flagged for suspicion because you're just under 10,000. You moved 9,000 or 8,000, like we're gonna flag you. So you can't move any amount of money. And with inflation being what it is, I mean, $8,000 is soon gonna be enough to wipe your ass if you're lucky, right? $5,000 is gonna be nothing. You can't do anything. It's like a week's vacation. How do you, if you want to move somewhere, they're gonna control everything. So in some ways, like I can see the value of having money laundering controls and protocols, but I like the freedom at the end of the day. And I know that comes with terrorism and all other bad things, but I just don't like the government being able to tell you like, hey, the Canadian government is getting close to 60% tax. It's like if they decide, hey, we're gonna impose a new 80%. They could just decide tomorrow, hey, interest rates are high, we can't sustain the current budget, we're gonna spend on X, Y, and Z and support money and send it to Ukraine and a million other places. We're gonna take 80% of your income. And they could do that. They could freeze your assets. I don't like that. I don't like that the tyranny, what I call tyranny of the majority. It's not even a real thing. I don't think when I took political science at Western, I don't think there was a term of tyranny of the majority, but because that's what democracy is, right? The majority rule. But you could actually have tyranny of the majority. You could have 51% of people who are fucking retarded, and they could rule over the 49% who are smart. And it's, I don't know, I don't want to get into the politics of that, but like, people are suffering right now. I would say the culture right now is like, no one wants to work. Everyone wants to sleep in, if I can do whatever they want, and no one wants to put up the extra work, especially Gen Z. They really don't want to work. They want to work from home, they want to watch TV, they want to be on their phones. And the problem is that they're competing with, like, these social media giants make these social media apps so contagious. The dopamine boost you get when you go into like a scrolling frenzy is like unreal. I've done it before. I've sat on my phone on like Instagram, like some business videos. Like I'm a sucker for like business videos, and I'll just watch them for like infinity, like 1 minute reels about like XY business or this and that. And I love those little entrepreneurial sound bites, and I'll watch them. And it's like, shit, 2 hours just went by. I look up and like 2 hours went by. I was sucked into my phone. And it's like, holy crap, that's psychologically powerful. Imagine a generation that grew up on that needs that dopamine hit. They have to look at their phone. They feel uncomfortable. They don't look at their phone every 10 minutes. That's the generation Gen Z. And the challenge is like doing that. Everyone wants to be a social media influencer. It's the number one thing on high school career reports. Number one thing people want to be is a social media influencer. That's the job. Used to be a doctor. Used to be, a banker or something, like a good profession, respectable profession. Now it's social media influencer. The problem is 1 in 1,000 will succeed as a social media influencer, and 999 will make nothing and waste their time posting videos and consuming a lot of content and doing nothing. It's not productive for society. They're just consuming. It's consumption. And a dollar invested goes a lot further in an economy than a dollar spent. I know people think spending drives an economy to an extent, but a dollar invested does a lot more, especially in the age of capital versus the age of labor. We are now in the revolution, the AI revolution, where a dollar of capital is much more valuable than a dollar of labor. And so if you have any labor right now, you need to be applying all of your labor and turning it into capital and saving as much capital as you can, because we're going to a capital revolution where those with capital will soon have control of everything. And so, I mean, the majority is not going to matter soon. The minority is going to be the thing that unfortunately is driving the world. Like Elon Musk, as an example, has more satellites around the world than any other government. You know what I mean? Like, imagine his power in the next 20 years when he could flip his fingers and 10,000 drones could come out and kill 1 billion people in 8 seconds. A drone with the right amount of guns on it, if you had 100,000 drones in every city, and you could wipe out the whole population, that wouldn't even be that hard to manufacture. In a couple of years, you could build an army of drones that's more powerful than an army of humans. Set to kill. Dead, 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 dead. They have instant precision from a half mile away. Dead, 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 dead. Millions of drones. Try to kill them all. I mean, you need to drop like an EMP. There's a real dystopian reality here where like those with capital, and I don't think this would ever happen, but like those with capital are going to have so much power that humans can't even revolt anymore. They'll just send out drones and they'll stun everyone. Everyone's just incapacitated for 8 hours. The rally's over. It's like, you got to be on the side of capital. So that's what I'm working towards, being on the side of capital, because I want to have my own little island, my own little defense system, just live my life, enjoy my time. I don't want to be part of this. This new world with inflation is like, there's going to be the bottom half that are really struggling. And psychologically, they're all fucked because our culture is incentivizing the wrong things. And it's scary. It's so scary if you're not on the side of capital. So get on the side of capital. Labor is becoming less and less valuable over time. You can see the unions struggling with this. People are struggling with this. But labor is becoming less and less valuable. It is still valuable. You can trade your labor for money right now. But soon, and robotics will be able to replace most of what we can do. And so we all of a sudden don't. How do you rise the class system? If your labor now is not as valuable as a dollar of capital, all you are doing is consuming. You're a flesh bag that can't produce anything for society, and it's a sad capitalist dystopian reality that could happen. So just get your financial house in order, guys. Keep working through this. Hopefully it's 50 years away, but every day we're advancing as a society. And so I guess to summarize, Tristan, I think that Binance being regulated could be a good thing, and that it's bringing additional capital into Bitcoin, which will drive Bitcoin's price up over time. This is actually allowing crypto to mature, and we're going to see more capital exposure. The market cap of Bitcoin is going to increase. I think we'll probably see 100,000 a token in the next 5 years, guaranteed. Again, we could also see $10,000 a token in the next 5 years. It's very volatile. So, well, I think for sure we'll have 100,000. We could also hit 10,000 at some point. So there's a little risk there. Don't put your whole net worth in it. But again, I think there's a good chance that we see Bitcoin come back. Bruin says, hey, Mike, could you share your thoughts on buying multifamily in greater Miami area or Central Florida? They say Miami's in a bubble. What do you think? Miami's expensive per unit. I've seen some buildings that were $240,000 a unit. That's crazy. The rents just don't justify, especially because, and maybe I'm wrong here because I'm not a U.S. citizen, I haven't had access to it, but I think that the financing programs are not that great like they are here. So I don't know why the cap rates have been driven to such lows, but I will say in Miami, there's a lot of cash. There are a lot of really wealthy foreigners who invest into Miami, and so it's propped up with a lot of foreign capital. Central Florida, to contrast it to what you're seeing in Miami, the price of real estate in like the Panhandle, like if you're talking like backwoods kind of hick town, Central Florida, but like northern Central Florida, you'll get $50,000 a unit in some cases, whereas Miami it's $300,000 a unit. So Florida is so different in what it has to offer. The dangers of I think a depreciation or a correction are definitely there in Miami for sure. I feel better about paying less per unit. I think that somewhere like Daytona Beach is a much better option than Miami because you're paying way less per unit. You still have that, like world's most famous beach. You have a lot of the same, things. It's not as warm there, so the hurricanes tend to not be as bad. The warmer it is, the worse the hurricane damage can be. But pros and cons, I guess. So your question was really about like, which is better? Depends on your goals, right? But I would say I wouldn't be buying in Miami right now. Andrew says, when could it be good to get into crypto? Are you investing in crypto right now? So yes, I have some crypto investments, but it's so hard to time it, right? Like if your horizon, I'll say this, if your horizon for Bitcoin is not like 5 or 10 years out, and you need that money back for something in the next couple of years, don't put it in Bitcoin. Don't put it in crypto. If you need that money back for something in the near term, there's a lot of volatility with cryptocurrencies right now. And though I think there's a really good chance that Bitcoin emerges as the new gold, the new digital gold, there's also a good chance that we go through a major recession next year and that we see Bitcoin prices fall 40%, so I don't know. The halvening is next spring. So we could see Bitcoin in the next 6 months go to $100,000 a token. That could happen. But again, there's no, I wouldn't invest a large percentage of my portfolio in it. It's something that I have a little bit of. It's a fringe asset that's part of a good balanced portfolio. I think you should have some Bitcoin, but if your heart can't handle that volatility, or you need that money to like buy a house next year, don't put it all in Bitcoin. Don't put it all in crypto. It's very volatile. You may need that money next year for something, and the prices have fallen 40%. You can't cash out. So if you have a long time horizon, I think it's a great part of a portfolio. And I like Bitcoin. I think it's, my kids' RESPs is all in Bitcoin. I think 80% Bitcoin for my kids for their education. My retirement account, all Bitcoin. Or I guess it's half ETH, half Bitcoin. I think maybe 20% S&P 500. So like, and I don't have a large portfolio of it, but I do have some exposure, and I'm very bullish on Bitcoin in the long term. And if I see ETH outperform Bitcoin at any point, I'm going to convert my ETH all into Bitcoin. And I'll be just Bitcoin holding. I'm less bullish on ETH than I was a year or two ago. So yeah, that's what's up. That's what's good with me. Hope you guys are having a great week. See you guys online. You guys know where to find me at Mike Rosehart on Instagram and on Facebook. And of course, you can find me. You can email me, rosehartcapital@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week. And as always, the secret to unlocking wealth for you is 3 levers. You're in control of your financial future in this order of importance when you're just getting started. Spend less, earn more, and maximize returns in the difference. That's it. You gotta control what you're spending. You gotta bring it down. You have control of what you're earning. You can pick up another job and earn more, find ways to increase your skills. And you want to make that gap as big as you can. If you're having trouble raising your ceiling, then you got to work on your spending. Find ways to bring it down. Find a way to get the same thing for half the price. There's always a way to get the same thing for less. Fight your insurance prices down. Negotiate your mortgage down. Downsize. Find a way to rent your basement out. Boom, bring your mortgage in half by renting part of your house out. Rent out your garage. I'm renting out my garage as an example. $1,000 a month. I have a garage I'm not using. It's like helps pay my mortgage for storage space to someone. There's so many things you can do to bring cash flow into your life for short periods of time when you need it. And it's like, find ways to do that, guys. Find ways to spend less, find ways to earn more. And of course, once you have that difference, you start saving. Then you worry about, once you start building up a portfolio, then you worry about what you invest that in. You maximize that return. A lot of people don't do that. Sit in savings accounts, sitting in treasury bills. So put it to work in the right places. That's what this channel's all about. It's what it's always been about. And I like real estate. It's my favorite way to grow, because again, you have ways to arbitrage and to cash flow in ways that you can't with other businesses. And I love it as a business because the downside risk is so much lower than most businesses, where, if you buy the right kind of property, you hold over 5 or 10 years, you always win. You buy a business, which is like real estate in a lot of ways, and you buy a business, you could lose. You could lose key staff and the business is bankrupt. That happens a lot. 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs go down. I love business. Business is the way to become a billionaire. It's the only way, is by investing in businesses. But I like real estate as a way to get there. So I focus this channel on real estate. All right, guys. Someone once said, real estate Jesus, that'd be a good brand, because I have the long hair and all that now. And I'm on a really bad hair day today, actually. But anyway, I should work on my social media. That's another thing I got to do. It's a low-hanging fruit. If you know anyone, guys, I'm put this out there. If you know anyone who is like amazing with social media growth and would like to help and be in London and be immersed in that as my marketing associate or something, hit me up, rosehartcapital@gmail.com. Someone who knows how to build a really good following and knows how to monetize a social media following, hit me up, because I want to grow the social media. I want to start investing in that business. I'm like, if I just started dumping like $10,000 a month, which is a fucking rounding error for me, into my social media brand, and just like paid for advertising and grew and started making good content, I could blow up with millions of followers. And I'm like, maybe that's what I need to be doing. Maybe that's the best use of my time. So something I've been thinking about noodling on. So I'm just throwing that out there for people watching. And if you're watching this and you've enjoyed the presentation today and you've enjoyed the Q&A, hit the thumbs up button. And it's like clapping for a video when you hit the thumbs up. And if you're watching the replay, hit the thumbs up too, and drop a comment. Let YouTube know that, and let me know that you got some value. So thanks, guys. See you next week.